Welcome back. Y'all know what time it is. It's time for some more conspiracy theories and unexplained mysteries, man. But before we get to today's video, real quick, we got to unplug some more people out of the Matrix. And you do that by hitting the like button, then putting hashtag unplugged in the comment section. All right? And if you're new, go ahead, look down below somewhere and hit that subscribe button and join the family. All right? Now let's check out the craziness.
You know, I majored in watching the X-Files reruns in college, so yeah, I guess you could say I'm something of an expert on UFOs.
X-Files.
You could say that. Barack Obama, he's just like us. Well, in one way at least. The former president of the United States wants to know whether there really are other life forms out there. In an appearance on The Late Late Show in mid-May, Obama confessed this.
The truth is that when I came into office, I asked, right? I was like, all right, is there the lab somewhere where we're keeping the alien specimens in spaceship? They did a little bit of research, and the answer was no.
Okay, he was joking. But then Obama said more about UFOs, and this is where things got really interesting. There's Obama again.
What is true, and I'm actually being serious here, is that there's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are. We can't explain how they moved, their trajectory. They did not have an easily explainable pattern. And
exactly. So there's no government official, or there's no one that can tell us that they don't exist when we have all this information out there that we have no answer for. We haven't identified what these things are yet. So for people to come out, make people look crazy for saying they've seen things and stuff like that. You can't do that. You can't do that to people, bro. It's so much stuff still out there we haven't figured out yet. So stop it, please.
So, I think that people still take seriously trying to investigate and figure out what that is.
Interesting, right? Obama's admission that there are, in fact, and I'm quoting him here, footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are, we can't explain how they moved, and their trajectory, end quote, is in keeping with a broader acknowledgement by official arms of the U.S. government after decades of denial that unidentified flying objects are real. Sidebar, believing UFOs are real...
And that's the thing, how can you have decades of denial? That's the part that gets us, the decades of denial.
Does not require believing in aliens. UFOs are simply unidentified flying objects. There's no assumption that they contain other life forms. In June, this is going to get very interesting because the Office of the Director of National Intelligence and the Secretary of Defense will be required to provide the Intelligence and Armed Services Committees of Congress with an unclassified report on what's called unidentified aerial phenomena. That requirement, this is totally fascinating, was tucked into the massive $2 trillion coronavirus stimulus package passed by Congress and signed into law by then President Donald Trump in late 2020. And it's not just the report that's coming to Congress, although that's going to be amazing. As CNN's Harmeet Kaur noted, quote, that report must contain detailed analyses of UFO data and intelligence collected by the Office of Naval Intelligence, the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, and the FBI, according to the Senate Intelligence Committee's directive. It should also describe in detail an interagency process for ensuring timely data collection and centralized analysis of all unidentified aerial phenomena reporting for the federal government, and designate an official responsible for that process, end quote. All of which represents, by far, the most the U.S. government has ever publicly discussed UFOs. For many years, former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid of Nevada was a lonely voice in Congress on the existence and topic of UFOs. Back in 2007, Reid pushed for the creation of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, known as ATIP, which was housed within the Department of Defense and about which almost nothing was or is really known. In a 2017 profile of ATIP, headline, Glowing Auras and Black Money, the Pentagon's Mysterious UFO Program. All right, I'll read headline writers. The New York Times wrote this, quote, The Defense Department has never before acknowledged the existence of the program, which it says it shut down in 2012. But its backers say that, while the Pentagon ended funding for the effort at that time, the program remains in existence. For the past 5 years, they say, officials with the program have continued to investigate episodes brought to them by serving members,
Wow.
also carrying out their other Defense Department duties. End quote. Now Reed, in an interview for the show,
Who can you trust these days, huh? That's the only thing I keep saying to myself. Who can we trust? With whom can I place my faith?
Nevada newsmakers back in 2019 was unapologetic about the $22 million he had earmarked for ATIP during his time in the Senate. Here's Reed, quote, "We know that China is doing it," he said in reference to studying UFOs, adding this, "We know that Russia, which is being led by someone within the KGB, is doing it too, so we better take a look at it too. We got a volume of research that was done, $22 million worth of research. It showed that not 2 people, not 4 people, or 6 people, or 20 people, but hundreds and hundreds of people have seen these things, sometimes all at the same time," end quote. Which is, let's be honest, a very good point. Sure, we all like to laugh about little green men landing on Earth, but the national security implications of crafts of indefinite origin and without any known tracking jetting through our airspace are significant. In April 2020, when the Pentagon released 3 videos of what they called unidentified aerial phenomenon, which amounted to a huge breakthrough in the government's acknowledgement of their existence, Reed wasn't surprised. Quote, "I'm glad the Pentagon is finally releasing this footage, but it only scratches the surface of research and materials available," tweeted Reed, adding, quote, "The U.S. needs to take a serious scientific look at this and any potential national security implications. The American people deserve to be informed."
Thank you.
And in the wake of Obama's late night comments in May, Reed wrote a New York Times op-ed insisting that, quote, "focusing on little green men or conspiracy theories won't get us far. Of course, whatever the science tells us, some portion of the public will continue to believe in the reality of otherworldly UFOs as a matter of faith. Ultimately, the UFO debate can be broken down into a sincere belief in science versus a sincere belief in extraterrestrials. I side with science," end quote. E.T. for all. Well, it's not clear yet what the unclassified report to Congress will say exactly. What is clear is that the existence of UFOs is now being taken seriously and publicly acknowledged at all levels of government. In an interview with Fox News' Maria Bartiromo in March, John Ratcliffe, who served as the Director of National Intelligence in the Trump administration, suggested the coming June report might be a blockbuster.
Frankly, there are a lot more sightings than have been made public. We're talking about objects that have been seen by Navy or Air Force pilots or have been picked up by satellite imagery that, frankly, engage in actions that are difficult to explain, that movements that are hard to replicate, that we don't have the technology for, or traveling at speeds that, exceed the sound barrier without a sonic boom.
Boom! In other words, the truth is out there. And that is the point.
We are learning of more missed warning signs for the company behind the Titan submersible that imploded on a mission to the Titanic. According to The New Yorker, David Lockridge, who was a former OceanGate employee who claims that he was wrongfully terminated for raising red flags, once sent an ominous email to a colleague about the doomed vessel, writing, "That sub is an accident waiting to happen." He also added this about then
not good.
Stockton Rush. He said, "I don't want to be seen as a tattletale, but I'm worried he kills himself and others in a quest to boost his ego." Rush, of course, was among 5 people who died in the tragedy. Joining me now is Ben Taub of The New Yorker, who wrote this really incredible story, Ben. And you obtained this never-before-seen report by David Lockridge, the fired OceanGate employee, and it details so many issues that he found with the sub during an inspection. Tell us more about what he found in this report.
Sure. Yeah, David Lockridge was perhaps the only highly experienced submarine pilot who worked at OceanGate at the time, and he was hired as their director of marine operations. And as part of that role, as they transitioned from the building phase into the testing phase, he was required to sign off that this was safe to dive. So he was raising concerns on the factory floor for much of the latter half of 2017. And was just constantly being dismissed, at which point he decided he was going to take this this serious inspection report, and he was going to detail everything in writing and submit it in writing to Stockton Rush, the CEO.
That was him basically saying, y'all hired me to do a job and y'all are not listening to me. What am I here for? But, there's a but I'm going to send this email for CYA. Y'all know what that means for a lot of y'all. CYA. And I'm going to detail my thoughts of why y'all shouldn't be taking this on a dive. This is basically what he just did.
Detail everything in writing and submit it in writing to Stockton Rush, the CEO,
CYA.
and Tony Nissen, the director of engineering. And in this, over the next sort of day it was January 18th, 2018, so more than 5 years ago, Lockridge inspected every major component of the sub and found that glue was coming away from the seams of the ballast bags. You had mounting bolts threatening to rupture things, ceiling faces that had errant plunge holes, O-ring grooves that deviated from standard parameters. Everything that could go wrong was sort of going wrong. There were snagging hazards, there were important components attached with zip ties, flammable flooring, and the interior vinyl wrapping would emit highly toxic gases upon ignition. But the number one concern for Lockridge was that the actual core of this submarine, the pressure boundary, which is what keeps people alive at 3,800 meters where Titanic is, where the external water pressure is about 6,000 pounds per square inch, is made of carbon fiber, which is not used in deep ocean submersibles because under compression, it's a capricious material. It's not made to be used under compression. It's fibers. It's like rope. It's strong under tension, but not under compression. So he examined a section of it and found that it was filled with little holes. He held it was delaminating these layers. It was porous. He held a light behind it and found that the light was streaming through, and he refused to sign off on the dive. And Stockton Rush said that because you refused to sign off on this manned testing, you cannot do your job as Director of Marine Operations, and so he fired him on the spot.
Yeah, in a way, he was doing the job, Ben, and he was fired for doing his job. And you have to wonder what would have happened if he'd been able to actually do his job. So you have in this, you also share instances where Rush, he seems to take personal offense to criticism, right? Because Lockridge knows people outside of OceanGate, and there's a co-head of a company that actually has a classed titanium sub. Of course, this sub, the submersible that imploded, it was not classed. And this co-head of this company says to him, basically warning him, and he lashes out, Stockton Rush does, saying that he's tired of industry players who try to use a safety argument to stop innovation. He seemed so confident that he was doing something new and different, and that he was being stymied by people saying it was in the name of safety, but he seemed convinced it wasn't, even though clearly it was.
Yeah, at the end of the day, this tragedy comes down to hubris. It was a matter of this kind of, Silicon Valley disruptor attitude, but it wasn't about beating the other companies. It was about trying to beat physics. And you're not going to win that. And they didn't win that. And it was sort of blindingly obvious for years that this sub was not being constructed in a manner that would work under great pressure. You can build a sub that's experimental.
So who steps in? How can we prevent this? When you have somebody so bullheaded on just achieving this goal that safety is pretty much thrown out the window, who steps in to say, nah, we're not going to allow you to jeopardize other people's lives? At this point, you're throwing safety out of the window and you have no regard for life. So we're going to protect others from you, as well as you need to protect him from himself, if possible. Who steps in and does that?
But you can't take passengers in it. That's completely illegal. And so they structured the company such that it was falling outside of U.S. jurisdiction in various ways. They had all kinds of sort of steps taken so that they weren't actually passengers. They were categorized as mission specialists. But how can you have a 19-year-old kid who's terrified of going inside, specialists? It's completely incoherent, and I imagine that this will continue for a long time in courts, because You can only call something an accident if it's truly an accident. And if there's 5 years of very explicit warnings from engineers explaining this is how it will implode, and you refuse to take them seriously, there has to come a point where someone takes responsibility for that. Dave Lockridge, for his part, after he was fired.
What's the lesson here on classing? Because he was so Stockton Rush resistant to having his submersible classed, and yet what is so clear in your report is how essential that process is to providing a submersible that is safe for people to go to these depths.
Yeah, 3,800 meters is not actually, it is an extreme depth, let's be clear, but it's not unprecedented. Nothing he was doing was breaking boundaries. The boundary breaking part of this operation was to try to do it in a sub that was unclassed and was clearly designed to do what it did, which was to fail. Class submarines have been going to the Titanic since the 80s. One of the guys in my article had been leading tours to the Titanic in the mid-2000s using Soviet submarines that were built in the 80s. Others in the article, because I happened to be at sea with them some years ago for a much more sort of serious venture where they were sending a manned submersible that was classed to the deepest point in each ocean. The deepest point in the Pacific Ocean is 11,000 meters. It's triple the depth of Titanic. And for that sub, they took the guy from the classification agency to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. He signed that it was unlimited depth at 11,000 meters down. And for that sub, in a titanium spherical hull, which evenly distributes the pressure, not a cylinder which will get crushed under pressure, that titanium sphere hull, the Titanic didn't even count as a dive for classification and insurance reasons.
Wow.
Every 100 dives you have to do inspections, but the threshold for them was 4,000 meters. And if it's above 4,000, Titanic's 3,800, it's not even a dive. So the notion that Stockton Rush was doing something innovative is a complete lie. And basically he had to change the narrative around the point that it became clear that they would never get it classed because it was going to be a failure. And the way that they did that was to sort of lie to their mission specialists, again, their passengers who they'd misclassified on purpose for legal reasons, that this, they stopped trying to say that it was safe. They started telling them explicitly, oh yeah, it's incredibly dangerous. You might die. You have to sign a waiver. This is an experimental sub, which was true. But the lie there was that this is how serious exploration is done. It's not how it's done at all. And a last thing that I just need to make very clear is that Dave Lockridge actually did raise this with the US government. After he was fired, he was so concerned about what was going on that he shared his report with OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and that report was then passed on from OSHA to the U.S. Coast Guard, and there's no evidence of any follow-up from there. That was in March of 2018.
Oh!
Yeah, you make that so clear. He tried to raise some flags, and in the end, he was buried in legal bills, as you describe in your report. Ben, excellent reporting. I think it's such an important lesson for so many people, not just when it comes to submersibles and deep ocean exploration, but anything that could be unsafe. It's a really important read, so thank you for being with us and sharing it.
There are many conspiracy theories pertaining to hidden ancient relics which can be found upon our moon. Conspiracies plague not only the known visit to it, but also the possible past visitation by a now lost civilization. A number of studies, including some here upon our channel, have exposed not only theories, but valid proofs to support the hypothesis of ancient ruins not only being present on the moon, but ancient lunar ruins having actually been visited in secret operations by NASA and other space agencies. Not only aware of said sign.
I believe there are so many secret missions going on that we don't know about. That is insane. When it does all come out, it's going to be insane.
But accused of studying them in secret. However, a discovery has been made which has seemingly been a lot more difficult, apparently impossible to keep concealed. Thus, it has been exposed after having been discovered by a group of intellectuals at the Baylor University, featured within a study published in the journal Geophysical Research Letters. They combined data from NASA's Gravity Recovery and Interior Laboratory, GRAIL, and the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, LRO, after finding a huge blob lurking over 100 miles beneath the South Pole Itken Basin. Imagine taking a pile of metal 5 times larger than the big island of Hawaii and burying it underground. That's roughly how much unexpected mass we detected, said Peter B. James, assistant professor of planetary geophysics at Baylor University. The basin near the bottom of our sole natural satellite is an oval-shaped crater several miles deep and up to 1,242 miles wide, the largest found upon the Moon. Located upon the Moon's far side, also known as the dark side, it never faces the Earth, permanently concealed from the world. It's an ideal place for future investigation by secretive agencies, as the far side would make an ideal location for any base development that one wished to keep hidden from the world. However, the metal object, which is of an incredible size, is yet to be identified, and if it has been found already by secret intelligence upon Earth, it has until now remained unmentioned, and as far as anyone knows, unstudied. One of the explanations of this extra mass is that the metal from the asteroid that formed the crater is still embedded in the Moon's mantle, said James, adding that the crater is believed to be 4 billion years old, almost as old as Earth itself. This means that if this was indeed left by a craft, the beings who made it would now, if still in existence, be unimaginably more advanced than the modern man of Earth, and could, in all possibility, still be visiting our solar system. Was this crater created by a metallic craft? If so, who were these beings? Were they interdimensional or merely interstellar travelers? It is an anomaly, like many others within our solar system, which we find highly compelling. Since the incident at Roswell, many UFO enthusiasts have been certain that Earth has been visited by extraterrestrial beings, many claiming that the incident was indeed a UFO crash, and that the US government not only covered the event up, but seized the craft and have been busily attempting to reverse engineer this technology ever since. These claims have been verified by a number of claimed whistleblowers who say they have worked on such projects at none other than Area 51 at Groom Lake. Since these claims were made, the CIA, along with many other bodies of US government, have begun to release hundreds of files, including witness testimonies of countless military personnel and civilians, testimonies and satellite and radar tracks made by individuals who have either had an encounter or have experienced unexplainable events connected to mysterious craft, often moving at seemingly impossible speeds or shutting down missile silos. These events would undoubtedly be a worry to the powers that be. The concern is that a hostile nation may have developed or successfully reverse engineered these technologies in secret. However, there is also overwhelming evidence to suggest that these sightings were not of man-made craft, but indeed that of extraterrestrial life. For not only are these craft witnessed over sensitive military complexes, but a number of experiences have also surrounded schools, two of which we thought were compelling enough to bring to the forefront of our studies, this due to the number of eyewitnesses and what their testimonies suggest. Although the accounts from a school in Zimbabwe were initially discredited, regardless of the fact that over 20 students witnessed a craft land in the school field, with the students subsequently going to meet the landing craft and being no more than arm's reach from the beings that emerged, many scientists and psychologists have attempted to discredit the event by putting it down to mass hysteria. The witnesses to this event continue to argue that it did indeed occur. Furthermore, supporting their claims, other encounters have been experienced at other schools around the globe. At approximately 11 a.m. on Wednesday, the 6th of April, 1966, students...
I remember hearing about that story and thinking to myself, man, what these kids are going to have to deal with mentally for the rest of their life, especially if they believe what they saw and hold on to it. And like, you know, that could mentally mess them up for the rest of their life, because they know speaking out about it is going to do what? It's going to turn them into what? It's going to make others look at them as what? You know what I mean? I feel for them, and I still continue to, man, because it's got to be tough, especially in this day and age.
And a teacher from Westall High School in Australia reported seeing a flying object described as a gray or silvery green saucer-shaped craft with a slight purple hue and about twice the size of a family car. According to the students, the object was descending, overflew the high school, and disappeared behind a stand of trees. Approximately 20 minutes later, the object reportedly reappeared, climbed at speed, and departed towards the northwest. Some accounts describe the object as being pursued by 5 unidentified aircraft. Thanks to these and thousands, possibly millions of other testimonies from people of countless disciplines, the acceptance that these craft exist has been forced upon the U.S. government and other governments globally. It would seem full disclosure, rather than the trickle we see now, is not a case of if, but is now one of when. It is a pursuit of truth which we find highly compelling. There is a very interesting patent recently acquired by the U.S. Navy, one with the potential capabilities to fulfill, or rather stage, a conspiracy theory which has circled the web and books alike for decades. That being a false flag alien invasion. What's more, this patent also includes a technology that could amplify a voice over a vast distance, as if one were hearing the voice of God himself. It is a laser technology, whose invention, release, and patent, all made under the possible guise or actual real-world advantageous purposes in its military applications, it creates a heat-seeking deterrent, or more specifically, a holographic craft, not only derailing said heat-seeking missiles, but could also explain many of the recent military UFO sightings, as this technology has potential only limited by the projectable power of the technology itself. Anything.
So now you're saying our pilots can't tell the difference between a hologram and a real, craft, a real spacecraft, or a real object in the sky? That's what we're seeing? That's what we're putting out there now? That's what they're going to stand on? Okay. I guess you just got to shake your head at some of the stuff they try to feed you sometimes. It's crazy.
Could seemingly appear in the sky as if real. If you add to this the ability to convey a voice over a vast distance, this technology could indeed be used to create a mass false flag incident, in particular a mass UFO sighting, or an attempt to fake a rapture within religious sects. The nefarious possible uses of this technology is wide-ranging. Yet one saving grace is the U.S. Navy's declaration of the ownership of such technologies, a move we find somewhat reassuring. Yet, as always, this new patent is not the only reason for the creation of our video today. For although many, if not all UFO sightings now can be written off as a possible holographic operation, it does not explain their presence within ancient art. The testimonies and compelling evidence put forth by remote tribes, most notably the Dogons, and their reoccurrence and claimed visitation of Earth throughout history, even into the Renaissance, present within certain masterpieces, not to mention the curious illustrations made in the stones of Mesoamerica, all of which predate this technology by centuries, and in some cases millennia. Thus, the question remains, are we alone? A question which we find highly compelling.
As the elders used to say to me, they're going to turn us everywhere but loose. Every way but loose. You know what I'm saying? Like, they just going to spin us till they can't spin us no more. That's all right, though. We're going to keep researching and diving into some of this evidence that keeps presenting itself to us. And we're going to figure it out for ourselves. I got faith in us, bro. But they're going to continue to try to spin us. So we got to plant our feet in solid ground, man. And stand tall, bro. They're going to continue to spin us. So listen, man, y'all get at me in the comment section. Let me know what you thought of these videos today, man. I think that Titan submersible story, man, it just keeps getting crazier and crazier. But y'all let me know your thoughts in the comment section. All right, it's your boy L. Stick around and stay tuned. Till next one, I'm gone. Peace.